just start talking about your family history and coming from Italy and how that was.
You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Well, just about your parents coming.
Well, it surprised me. But I wasn't living at the time.
Yeah.
So where did they come from?
They came from Piedipendando, Italy, when they were 9 and 10 years old.
And then they arrived
And
where?
on a boat. It took them about 3 weeks to come over in the boat.
And then where did they come into?
They came into Staten Island.
Is that where you were born?
Huh?
Is that where you were born?
No, I was born in Cincinnati.
Oh, right.
So how'd they get to Cincinnati?
Well, they had friends here. They came and they didn't even live with each other. They were 9 and 10 years old when they came over.
Mm-hmm.
They lived with family and then they got married.
Do you remember like World War II and how it felt to be like fighting against Italy?
Oh, not too much.
No. Do you remember the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, I did.
You know, like, was it a huge surprise?
No. Well, yeah, it was a shock, but wasn't surprised.
Do you remember like D-Day in World War II?
I don't know if they were living or not at that time.
No, do you remember that? Was that in your time, or?
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You do?
What do you remember about it?
Well, they just attacked. The U.S. attacked all of the enemies.
Were you for the war or no?
No, I was for it.
You were? Do you remember like when we dropped the nuke on Japan?
Nope.
No?
What?
When we dropped the nuke on Japan.
Oh, when you nuked Japan?
Yeah.
No, I remember that.
How old were you?
Who knows?
I
I
mean,
don't.
were you a teen or older? Because I have no idea.
I don't either. I don't remember that.
Probably like 20.
When you were younger, was it with the technology available, was it hard to be informed on what was going on, like, internationally with the war and everything?
No, it was very informative.
How did you get the information? Because there wasn't like.
How did I get it?
Mostly
Yeah.
newspapers, probably.
No, I got it from TV, and newspaper.
So the TV was. When you were young, there was TV?
Yep.
Let's talk about the 60s. Do you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis?
The what?
Cuban Missile Crisis?
No.
No. What about JFK's assassination?
Yep, remember that?
Were you a JFK fan?
Yeah, sure
Yeah.
was.
Was that pretty shocking that happened?
Yep.
I think that was the year I was born.
Really?
Was it 1963?
Yeah, it was.
What'd you think about that, Dad?
Well, I thought it was pretty bad.
Was the country, like, affected?
Yeah, sure the country was affected.
Also during the 60s, there was like the Star Wars race, like the race with Russia to get to the moon and all of that stuff. Did you really pay attention to or support the U.S. trying to get to space?
Yeah, I did.
What'd you think of Neil Armstrong being the first man on the moon and us winning?
Thought that was great.
That was an incredible moment from let's move on to the 70s. Do you remember Nixon and the Watergate scandal?
Yes.
Did you support Nixon before that happened?
No, I didn't.
You never liked him?
I didn't like Nixon.
No. Do you remember the Roe versus Wade case about abortion?
I don't remember that.
No.
What didn't you like about Nixon?
Well, he was president of the United States, and then he admitted that he lied. And I didn't like him.
Do you remember the Tiananmen Square massacre? It was like in China.
Nope.
No. Do you remember? What about when Ronald Reagan was elected?
Yeah, I do.
Do you remember him like trying to get the Berlin Wall to collapse?
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah.
So you were a Reagan fan?
Yeah. Well, even if you weren't a Reagan fan, you would have, everybody thought that was good.
Yeah. Do you remember like the Cold War with the Soviet Union?
Yeah, I do.
What was that like? Did you hear a lot about
I
it?
was in the Air Force then.
You were?
And, yeah, our job was to keep the missiles from hitting, the West Coast. Never happened, so.
Yeah. Was it pretty scary? Like, back and forth?
Was it what?
Pretty scary?
Yeah, it was scary.
What was it like? Can you talk a little bit more about what it was like being in the Air Force during that time with all that tension with the Soviet Union?
Well, no, really. I was in the service just to beat the draft.
So you just went in the Air Force to get out of the draft?
Exactly.
Yeah.
How long were you in there?
Well, I enlisted for 4 years, and when they flunked me out, when I got there, they told me I had a bad eye, so we didn't like it. But then they passed a law in Congress saying that you only had to serve 2 if you flunked out. So everybody flunked out
So they flunk out on purpose?
on purpose.
Did you serve 2 years?
Yep.
Where were you at?
I worked while I was in Houston. And, it was a NASA base. It wasn't a NASA base then, but it was a base. We were very embarrassed. All we did was we wouldn't even wear our uniforms off the base.
Wow. Wait, you got moved all the way to Houston?
Yep.
Do you want to talk more about your personal career, like being treasurer of Cincinnati?
Well, not really, but
No?
it was a good job. It meant a lot to me. Because,
When were you the treasurer?
And how did you get that position? Tell them.
well, I was through civil service, but then when I got in there, I wasn't a politician, so I made it through all the Republicans and the Democrats, so forth.
That in the 80s?
I don't know what year it was.
How old were you when you became city treasurer? Around 30s or 40s?
Oh, probably I was in the. That was probably in the 60s. End of the 60s. That's when I became treasurer.
Did you have to take a test?
In a way, but it was kind of a rigged test. It was a test because I was doing well in the accounting and auditing department.
How long were you treasurer for?
Oh, 25 years or so.
Wow. Good. you remember when Clinton was president?
Clinton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure you didn't like him.
No, nobody did. I didn't.
And then when the sex scandal came out, you just didn't even like him even more.
Even more.
Do you remember like where you were on like 9/11 and stuff?
No, when?
On 9/11,
What was that?
the terrorist attack on New York.
We did?
The terrorist on New York on the Twin Towers.
Oh, that was terrible, yeah. I saw the planes hit that. I was watching TV that day. And I was in Houston. I was watching I was in somewhere in California. In fact.
Wow. That was probably a shock to you.
No, it was tragic.
Yeah. I think we're good. Thanks, Papa.
You're welcome.
Did you get enough?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You sure?